Imagine a world where every breath you take fills you with power, confidence, and clarity. A place where fear no longer dictates your choices and confidence becomes your constant ally. Welcome to Breathe Confidence, Exhale Fear, a transformative journey based on the teachings of Joseph Murphy. This text is not just a guide, it is a gateway into your subconscious mind, where the seeds of your beliefs, limitations, and true potential reside. Here, you will learn to inhale calm, strength, and determination and exhale everything that holds you back, anxiety, doubt, and fear. Prepare to discover powerful techniques that connect body, mind, and spirit, unlocking your ability to live with certainty, courage, and serenity. Every word is a push toward transformation. Every pause is a reminder of your inner power. It's time to leave the chains of fear behind. Take a deep breath and begin your journey toward unshakable confidence. From the beginning of time, breathing has been the silent mystery that sustains your life. You cannot live without air, yet you rarely think about it. You breathe automatically, as if nothing extraordinary were happening in that simple act. And yet, breathing is the bridge between your body and your soul, between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. There, in that constant flow of inhalation and exhalation, lies the key to your destiny. Scripture reminds us, God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. That divine breath did not end at the dawn of creation. It continues every time you fill your lungs with air. Each inhalation is the acceptance of the divine life that dwells within you. Each exhalation is the release of fear, tension, and the dark memories that have accumulated in the folds of your mind. Thus, breathing is not merely a physiological movement, but a silent prayer, a sacrament you repeat thousands of times a day. I have seen men and women regain their health by learning this secret. A woman afflicted by panic attacks discovered that by breathing slowly, with the intention of receiving peace, her crises faded away. A man weakened by insomnia managed to sleep peacefully after practicing deep breaths filled with trust. Another, tormented by constant pain, found relief as he consciously exhaled his tensions. None of them needed complicated formulas or strange doctrines. They simply learned to use the breath as a vehicle of faith. What science calls oxygenation, I call faith in action. Oxygen ignites your cells. Faith ignites your spirit. When you unite both forces through conscious breathing, you activate within yourself an inner medicine capable of transforming body, mind, and soul. This book is an invitation to discover the power of your own breath. There is nothing to fear, nothing to force. You only need to pause, breathe with awareness, and let the air become your prayer. As you do so, you will realize that you are not alone. The very spirit that gave you life sustains your existence in every breath. Keep this simple yet powerful formula in your heart. As I inhale, I say I trust. As I exhale, I say I let go. Practice it and you will discover that every breath is a key that opens the door to peace, health, and abundance. Breathe in trust, exhale fear, based on the teachings of Joseph Murphy. We've noticed that over 80% of the people who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and giving this video a like. Thank you for inspiring us to keep creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. The Mystery of the Divine Breath. Since the beginning of time, humankind has sought the secret of life. What keeps a body in motion? What keeps the bones warm? What lights the spark in the eyes? Scripture expresses it simply. God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. That first breath was not a mere movement of air. It was the transmission of life itself, the invisible current that joins the human with the divine. Every breath you take is a reminder of that creative act. Each time you inhale, you repeat the primal gesture of creation. You are accepting, though often unknowingly, the energy of the infinite. When you exhale, you return to the universe what does not belong to you, tensions, fears, and doubts that weigh upon your chest. The sacred origin of breathing. Breathing is not merely a physiological function. It is a silent sacrament you perform thousands of times a day. The ancients knew this well. In many languages, the word spirit also means breath or air. The divine breath is in truth humanity's first prayer and the last when one departs this world. Imagine the potter. He takes formless clay, shapes it with his hands, and when the figure is nearly complete, he gently blows upon it. That breath adds no clay or water, but it gives life. In that moment, the piece ceases to be a lifeless object and becomes a living symbol. So too does the spirit work within you. It molds you in your mother's womb, forms you in bone and flesh, and finally breathes into you the invisible spark that sets your heart aflame. Ask yourself, are you aware of this mystery each time you breathe? Or do you let your life pass as though each inhalation were a mere biological accident? If you understand that every breath is a direct participation in the eternal source, you will realize you are far closer to God than you ever imagined. The electric spark that ignites the cells. Science now confirms what spiritual intuition declared centuries ago. When you inhale oxygen, it diffuses into the blood and reaches every cell. There, a delicate combustion occurs, a silent fire that nourishes the tissues. Each cell is like a lamp that needs oil and oxygen to shine. If oxygen is lacking, the lamp goes out. If it is abundant, life burns brightly. This microscopic process is also a parable for your mind. Your thoughts are like cells. Each idea needs spiritual oxygen to ignite. That oxygen is trust, faith, the inner certainty that you are not alone. When you think with fear, it is as if you deprive the cell of air. It withers, weakens, and darkens. But when you think with confidence, the spark ignites. Mental circuits light up, and your subconscious receives the command to expand life, health, and prosperity. A physician friend once told me of a man who suffered from anxiety attacks. His heart raced, his face turned pale, and he believed he was about to die. In truth, he had simply forgotten how to breathe. He had become accustomed to short, shallow breaths, as if air could no longer enter his lungs. The doctor taught him a simple exercise. Inhale slowly and deeply while counting to 4. Hold for a moment, and exhale gently while counting to 6. In a short time, the man found not only that his anxiety vanished, but that his mind grew calm. Each breath had become an electric switch that turned on serenity. Do you see the lesson? Your breath is your energy. Each inhalation is an electric spark that ignites your cells, and each exhalation is a discharge that releases accumulated tension. Spirit and breath, one and the same. It is no coincidence that the word spirit means breath in biblical and ancient languages. To breathe and to be spiritual were once one and the same. To say that someone had spirit was to affirm that they breathed with God, that they were connected to the invisible source. When a man says, "I have no spirit," what he truly means is, "My breath has weakened." What is the solution? To breathe life into the inner ember once again. Just as the farmer blows gently to rekindle his fire, so must you revive your spirit through conscious breathing. Inhale deeply with the awareness that divine life enters you. Exhale with the conviction that fear leaves your being. The seed the farmer plants in the earth needs oxygen to germinate. Without air, the seed rots beneath the soil. With air, it breaks its shell, rises, and becomes a tree. So too are your desires. If you bury them in the soil of your subconscious without the oxygen of faith, they decay into frustration. But if you give them air through conscious, trust-filled breathing, they sprout with vigor and grow into tangible realities. Parable of the potter and the seed. Let us unite these two images. The potter breathes upon the clay to give it life, and the farmer exposes the seed to air so it may grow. You are both potter and sower of your destiny. With each breath, you breathe life into the mental forms you create. With each exhalation, you prepare the soil so that the seed of your thoughts may receive oxygen and germinate. A man once confessed to me that he lived in constant fear of losing his job. Each day he breathed quickly and nervously, without realizing it. I taught him to repeat while inhaling, "I trust in infinite provision," and while exhaling, "I release all fear." Within weeks, he not only regained his serenity, but received a better job offer. He had sown confidence in his mind, and the harvest came in abundance. Practical application. I now invite you to experience the mystery of the divine breath. Sit with your back straight. Gently close your eyes. Inhale to the count of 4 and say silently, "I receive the life of God." Hold for a moment and feel the electric spark touch every cell. Exhale to the count of 6 and say, "I release fear. I let go of doubt." Repeat this cycle 10 times. Make this practice your daily habit. Like the farmer who waters his crops each morning, water your subconscious with the air of trust. In little time, you will notice your mind clearing, your body strengthening, and your spirit expanding. Breathing is the forgotten sacrament. It is the key that opens the doors of life, the spark that ignites the cells, the bridge between spirit and body. Do not breathe like those who know not what they do. Breathe as one who participates in the act of creation. Remember, every inhalation is a yes to life, every exhalation is a no to fear. Your breath is divine. In recognizing it, you transform your existence. Chapter 2. Fear as an illusory shadow. Fear has no substance of its own. It is a shadow, a mirage, an image projected onto the screen of your mind. The person who lives in fear is like one who startles at his own shadow on the wall, mistaking it for a monster. The shadow disappears when you turn on the light, and in the same way fear vanishes when the light of truth enters your consciousness. Fear is born in the conscious mind, but its roots are buried deep in the fertile soil of the subconscious. There, in that creative reservoir where every thought takes root, the suggestions of fear are planted as seeds that grow into anxiety, anguish, paralysis, and disease. Sow the idea of fear in your subconscious, and you will harvest limitation. Sow trust, and you will reap victory. I have heard many patients say, "Doctor, I feel like I'm going to get sick. I have a sense that something bad will happen." When examined, there was no trace of illness, yet their negative faith in disaster was so deeply engraved in their subconscious that their bodies soon obeyed that invisible command. One woman was convinced she would die of the same disease that took her mother's life. She fed that suggestion day after day, breathing with fear each time she felt the slightest symptom. Years later, she developed that very illness. It was not an inevitable inheritance. It was a belief inherited and accepted by her subconscious as truth. In contrast, another woman with the same family history decided to plant a different seed. Every morning, as she inhaled, she silently repeated, "The life of God flows through my cells." As she exhaled, she declared, "I release the fear of illness." In a short time, her health blossomed with vigor. Fear had been an illusory shadow dissolved by the light of faith. Scripture says, "Fear not, for I am with you." This is not merely a pious phrase. It is a psychological command addressed to your subconscious. The deeper mind receives that instruction as a decree that must be fulfilled. If you repeat it as you breathe, if you let it enter your being as oxygen enters your blood, you will soon find that fear loses its grip. Each inhalation with the thought, "God is with me," strengthens your cells. Each exhalation with the certainty, "I release fear," uproots the poisonous root of anxiety. Thus, the biblical word becomes medicine for the soul and electrical energy for the body. A merchant once confessed that he lived in constant fear of going bankrupt. His breathing was shallow, as if air barely reached him. Each customer who entered his shop seemed to him a threat, as though they came to complain. I taught him to recognize fear in his breath. Every time he noticed himself breathing short, he was to say silently, "I am exhaling fear. I am inhaling confidence." With practice, he discovered he could overcome his anxiety attacks with just 3 cycles of conscious breathing. What once seemed an unbeatable enemy vanished like smoke. His business prospered, for confidence attracts opportunities, just as fear drives them away. The subconscious does not reason, argue, or judge. It simply accepts as truth whatever impresses it with emotion. If you fear poverty, your deeper mind receives that as an order and arranges your actions to lead you to scarcity. If you fear loneliness, your subconscious recreates that condition, even if you are surrounded by people. It is like an obedient gardener who makes no distinction between wheat and weeds. It cultivates whatever you plant. When you sow seeds of fear, you harvest bitter fruit. When you sow seeds of trust, you reap abundance and peace. A young student once came to me terrified of his exams. He was convinced he would fail, though he had studied diligently. Every night he went to bed thinking, "I'm going to fail." His breathing was shallow, and he dreamt of defeat. I asked him to practice a simple breathing formula before sleeping. As he inhaled, he was to say silently, "Divine intelligence guides me." As he exhaled, "I release the fear of failure." He repeated this every night for a week. When the day of the exam arrived, he felt a calm he had never known before. He answered clearly, passed with honors, and realized that fear had been nothing but an illusory shadow. Fear is, in truth, misdirected faith. It is believing in evil instead of good. It is expecting disaster instead of blessing. It is like breathing smoke instead of pure air. But remember, just as you can open a window to let in fresh air, you can open your mind to let in trust. The technique is simple. Each time you notice fear in your breathing, do not resist it. Do not fight it with violence. Observe it and say to yourself, "This is only a shadow. It has no substance." Inhale deeply with the idea of receiving life. Exhale with the intention of releasing the shadow. Do this 3, 5, or 10 times until you feel the lightness of faith. A man once told me that when he walked alone at night, he often heard footsteps behind him. His heart raced, his pace quickened, and sweat ran down his forehead. When he finally turned around, he discovered it was only the echo of his own steps. That is how fear works, an illusion magnified by imagination. When you learn to see with the light of truth, you will realize no one is chasing you. All that existed was your own shadow projected into the darkness. You can live without fear. It is not your divine inheritance to live in anxiety. You were created to trust, to breathe in peace, to walk confidently on the path of life. Do not accept suggestions of fear any longer. Make your breathing a continuous prayer. As you inhale, proclaim trust. As you exhale, expel the illusion of fear. Repeat this until your subconscious becomes saturated with faith. Then you will walk lightly. Your mind will be clear and your heart will feel upheld by the eternal presence that dwells within you. Fear is an illusory shadow. Give it no power. Turn on the light of your faith, and the shadow will flee. Chapter 3. Confidence is a habit you breathe. Confidence is not an accident nor a whimsical gift granted to a few. It is a mental habit, a custom of the soul, a melody that can be trained until it plays automatically in the heart. Just as a farmer learns to sow in every season until his hands move with natural ease, you too can learn to breathe confidence until your subconscious turns it into a law of your life. Each deep breath is like a chisel carving positive thoughts into the soft stone of the subconscious mind. Your breath is the invisible pen with which you write in the secret book of your destiny. If you breathe shallowly with fear or anxiety, your thoughts are imprinted weakly, faintly, without strength. But when you breathe slowly and deeply, with faith and purpose, the message is engraved clearly, like letters carved in marble. That inner writing cannot be erased. It becomes a pattern of conduct, an automatic reflex, the foundation upon which you build your life. Think of your heart. You do not need to command it to beat. It does so because, deep in your mind, the order of life is written. Likewise, when you train your breath with thoughts of confidence, your subconscious turns them into a vital rhythm. There comes a moment when you no longer need to force confidence. You breathe and trust at the same time, two inseparable actions. I remember a young man who suffered from stage fright. He was talented, but every time he had to speak in public, his voice trembled, his breathing became erratic, and his hands would sweat. He told me, "I feel as if I'm suffocating, as though there isn't enough air for me." I taught him the technique of abdominal breathing. He was to sit upright, place one hand on his chest and the other on his abdomen, and make sure that when he inhaled, his belly expanded first, not his chest. That simple correction carried air to the deepest part of his lungs, calmed his nervous system, and quieted his mind. At first he practiced in private, reciting phrases of confidence as he breathed. "I breathe security. I sow success." In time, he noticed his voice becoming firm, his gaze steady, and his speech natural. What once had been a habit of fear had turned into a habit of confidence, planted and strengthened by his conscious breathing. The subconscious learns through repetition. It does not distinguish between wheat and weeds. It cultivates whatever you give it. If you repeat as you breathe, "I am weak, I will fail," that will be your harvest. But if each day, calmly and rhythmically, you inhale saying, "I trust in life," and exhale saying, "I release doubt," that repetition will grow into deep roots that nothing can pull out. The subconscious records your breathing like a field, receiving every drop of water. At first, you may not see the fruit, but the field is being nourished. The farmer does not despair when sowing. He does not dig up the earth each morning to see if the seed has sprouted. He knows the seed is alive and trusts the invisible process. Likewise, when you breathe confidence, you may not notice immediate results, but something begins to happen deep within you. Your nerves calm, your cells receive abundant oxygen, and your subconscious becomes infused with assurance. Then one day, almost without realizing it, you discover that you no longer tremble in the situations that once paralyzed you. Your automatic response is confidence, because you have planted confidence. Faith is a vital rhythm. It is not an occasional effort. It is a constant pulse, like the beating of your heart or the flow of your breath. If your breath stops, you die. If your faith falters, fear takes over. That is why you must train your breathing until every inhalation becomes an acceptance of divine life, and every exhalation a renunciation of fear. In this way, your faith ceases to be a sporadic act and becomes a permanent habit. A farmer once told me that during a drought, his neighbors abandoned their land, but he kept watering his plants with the little water he had. He said to me, "If I stop trusting, the earth will know. If I keep trusting, the earth will respond." Indeed, when the rains returned, his harvest was greater than all the rest. Confidence is like that steady watering. Even when no rain is in sight, even when the ground looks dry, you keep breathing confidence, you keep sowing security. The subconscious records your perseverance, and in due time, it produces the harvest. The formula is simple and powerful. I breathe security, I sow success. Make it your daily mantra. When you wake in the morning, sit in silence, breathe deeply, and repeat these words with every inhalation and exhalation. As you walk through the street, match your steps to the rhythm of conscious breathing. As you lie down at night, let your final exhalation become an act of faith. Tomorrow I will rise stronger, for today I have planted security in my subconscious. Thus your breath becomes the rudder that steers your destiny. Confidence is a habit you breathe. It is not about waiting for a stroke of luck to grant it to you. It is about engraving it within yourself with every breath. Your deeper mind is waiting for instruction. Give it the command to trust. Repeat it with rhythm, with calm, with certainty, and it will obey. Then you will discover that faith is no longer an effort, but the very air you breathe. And when faith becomes your breath, fear has no place to dwell. You have sown confidence, and your harvest will be abundance, peace, and success in all your endeavors. Chapter 4. The Science of Exhaling Fear. Fear does not reside only in the mind, it also lodges in the muscles, in the bones, in the tension that grips the chest, and in the knot that immobilizes the throat. When a person is afraid, their whole body becomes a closed field of contained energy. Shoulders hunch, fists clench, breathing shortens. It is as if fear, subtle and invisible, seeks refuge in the flesh, hardening there into rigidity. This is why it is so important to understand the science of exhalation. Exhaling is releasing, emptying, returning to the universe the energy that never should have remained trapped within you. Exhalation is not merely air leaving the lungs, it is an act of purification. Each time you exhale, your body frees itself of carbon dioxide and impurities that have completed their cycle. Just as trees take in your breath and transform it into oxygen, your exhalation is a gift, an offering that allows life to continue in a perfect cycle. The same happens on a mental level. Each exhalation can become an opportunity to expel old memories, accumulated guilt, and stored fears. Just as stale air leaves your lungs, entrenched fear can exit your subconscious. If you consciously associate exhalation with release, remember the old man in the parable. He walked bent over, carrying a sack full of stones on his back. Day by day, his walk grew heavier, his breath shorter, his strength weaker. One day he decided to open the sack and, with each step, let a stone drop. At first, letting go was difficult because he had grown used to the weight, but each stone that fell made him lighter. In the end, without any burden, he walked upright, with a steady step and deep breath. That is what you become when you decide to exhale fear. Each breath is a stone released. Each exhalation restores your lightness. I have seen men and women carry grudges and guilt as if they were dark treasures. Over time, these feelings manifest as muscle pain, chronic fatigue, or illnesses without apparent cause. What happens is simple. Fear, anger, and guilt generate contraction in the body, and that contraction interrupts the natural flow of life. When you teach your body to exhale with intention, that contraction melts away like ice under the sun. A woman came to me saying, I feel a weight in my chest that keeps me from sleeping. I asked her to practice a long exhalation before bed, murmuring, I exhale fear, I exhale doubt, I exhale shadow. She did this night after night until she told me, it's as if I've released a sack of stones. Peace returned to her face, and her body regained vitality. Physiology explains this simply. When you inhale, the diaphragm descends, the lungs expand, and the blood fills with oxygen. When you exhale deeply, the diaphragm rises, the lungs empty, and with them go tensions. A prolonged exhalation activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for calm, repair, and rest. Each conscious exhalation sends a message to your body. I am safe. I can release. If you associate that exhalation with the intention of letting go of fear, your subconscious obeys, turning your breath into an act of healing. A businessman burdened with debt confessed that he woke each morning with a knot in his stomach. He lived anticipating disasters, and his body reflected it. Clenched jaw, stiff back, shallow breathing. I taught him to sit each day before starting work, inhale counting to 4 and exhale slowly counting to 8, repeating, I exhale fear, I exhale doubt, I exhale shadow. At first it was difficult, but within a week he noticed the knot in his stomach easing and his mind clearing to solve problems. Soon, he found creative solutions that pulled him out of financial ruin. Exhalation had been the key to releasing energy blocked by fear. The past often clings to the mind like dust stuck to the skin, memories of failures, harsh words, old guilt. All of it stays like stones in the old man's sack. But each exhalation can become an act of letting go. You do not need to relive every wound or analyze each mistake. Simply recognize that you carry the weight and allow it to leave with your breath. As you exhale, imagine your breath carrying away the painful memory. Declare with faith, I release the past, I free the fear. Repeat until you feel your chest expand and your body lighten. Fear is accumulated energy, but it is not permanent. Exhalation is the natural channel provided by divine wisdom for that energy to leave. The air you expel never returns. It dissolves into the atmosphere, transforming. In the same way, the fear you exhale transforms into freedom. Therefore, I urge you, do not hold on to what must be released. Do not retain the stale air of anxiety. Train your body and mind in the science of exhaling. Each day, upon waking and before sleeping, dedicate a few minutes to slow exhalation, speaking firmly, I exhale fear, I exhale doubt, I exhale shadow. Soon you will notice your steps lighter, your posture more upright, your gaze clearer. Just as the old man regained freedom by dropping the stones from his sack, you will reclaim your true strength by releasing fear with every breath. Exhalation is the key to inner freedom. Do not cling to the shadow, expel it with your breath. And when the shadow dissipates, the radiant light of confidence will remain within you, shining in every cell of your being. Chapter 5. Conscious Breathing and Scientific Prayer. To pray is to breathe with awareness. To breathe is to pray in silence. Many believe that prayer consists only of words directed upward, when in fact the most powerful prayer takes place deep within, in the silence of your breath. Each inhalation can be a plea, each retention a meditation, each exhalation an offering, and each pause a moment of rest in God. In this way, prayer and breathing merge into a single act, like two notes that, when sounded together, form a perfect chord. The ancient mystics understood this. They did not need complicated books or elaborate formulas. Their prayer was rhythmic, in harmony with the breath. In the deserts of the East, in hidden monasteries, in mountains where men and women sought the face of the divine, breath was the first teacher. They inhaled with the intention of receiving the life of the spirit. They held the air as one might guard a treasure. They exhaled as one offers a gift to the universe and rested in silence as one rests in the Father's embrace. This practice was more than breathing. It was communion with the eternal presence. Your subconscious obeys images and rhythms. It does not reason, argue, or evaluate logical arguments. Its language is that of repetition, symbols, and sensations. That is why conscious breathing is scientific prayer. You repeat a rhythmic pattern accompanied by a clear idea, and the subconscious records it as immutable truth. If, as you inhale, you imagine divine peace entering you, if, as you exhale, you visualize anxiety leaving your being, And if you repeat this with a steady rhythm, your deeper mind accepts it as fact and organizes your body and circumstances according to that image. Breath turns an idea into reality because it impresses it with the power of emotion and vital rhythm. A merchant once told me that he used to recite hurried prayers before opening his shop, but he did so in haste, without attention. His conscious mind spoke words, but his subconscious did not receive them because there was no emotion or rhythm. I taught him to practice four-part breathing prayer. Inhale, counting to 4 with the phrase, "I receive the life of God." Hold for 4, feeling the energy imprinting every cell. Exhale, counting to 4, saying, "I release my fear." And rest for 4 seconds in silence, sensing the peace. He practiced every morning before opening his business. After a few weeks, he noticed a radical change. He attended to customers with serenity, more people came to his shop, and his prosperity grew. It was not external magic, it was the fruit of his scientific prayer, impressed upon his subconscious through conscious breathing. In truth, every genuine prayer is the breath of the soul. When you say, "Our Father," you are inhaling his presence deep within. When you say, "Thy will be done," you are exhaling your resistance. When you fall silent, you rest in the certainty that you have already been heard. Thus, the rhythm of prayer aligns with the rhythm of breath. Receive, hold, offer, rest. A student nervous about exams came to me saying, "I don't know how to pray. My words get confused and I feel God doesn't hear me." I asked him to leave the words aside and simply breathe with attention. He inhaled deeply with the thought, "Divine wisdom inspires me." He held the breath briefly with the certainty, "It is imprinted in my mind." He exhaled saying, "I release my anxiety," and rested in silence. He repeated this several times until a mantle of calm descended upon him. Later, he confessed that he had found more peace in this simple technique than in hours of hurried prayers. He discovered that his breath had become a dialogue with God. Scientific prayer does not consist of begging or pleading, but in establishing the correct idea in the subconscious. Conscious breathing facilitates this process because it introduces the idea with the power of rhythm. Just as a drum sets the pace for an army, your breath sets the pace for your thoughts to reach the depths of the mind. And what the subconscious receives with rhythm, it obeys as law. Make conscious breathing your daily prayer practice. Inhale with faith, hold with love, exhale with surrender, rest with trust. As you inhale, imagine a river of light entering you. As you hold, feel that light imprinting every cell. As you exhale, release all burden, shadow, and doubt. As you rest, dwell in the peace of the Spirit. Repeat this cycle 10 times upon waking and 10 times before sleeping. You will find your mind calming, your body strengthening, and your destiny aligning with divine harmony. To breathe consciously is to pray without words. It is the purest prayer because it does not depend on language or noise, but on the eternal rhythm that unites man with God. Each conscious breath is a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the conscious mind and the creative power of the subconscious. Remember, your prayer is not in much speaking, but in much breathing with faith. When your breath becomes prayer, your entire life transforms into a silent hymn of trust, peace, and victory. Chapter 6. Anti-fear protocols in daily life. Fear appears in the most common places. It can arise in the office before a difficult decision, at home when harmony is lacking, or in the body when illness threatens. It does not always arrive with roars. Sometimes it disguises itself as a restless thought, a persistent worry, or a baseless premonition. Yet every shadow of fear can be dissolved with the same instrument, conscious breathing. What you need is not a complicated theory, but a simple protocol, a practice you can apply anytime, anywhere. Just as a soldier learns to respond instinctively on the battlefield, you can train your mind and body to respond to fear with the secret weapon of breath. At work, when the weight of tasks seems to suffocate you, pause and breathe. Inhale, counting to 4. Imagine that you receive order, clarity, and strength. Exhale, counting to 8. Visualize releasing tension, disorder, and doubt. Repeat 3 times, even amid the noise of the office, and you will find your mind clearing like a sky after a storm. In the family, when a dispute threatens to escalate, remember that a single conscious breath is worth more than 1,000 words spoken in anger. Inhale deeply and say inwardly, "I receive peace." Exhale calmly and affirm, "I release discord." Often it is enough for just one person to breathe consciously for the atmosphere of a home to change. In illness, breath is invisible medicine. Each inhalation brings oxygen and life to your cells. Each exhalation expels toxins and fear. Inhale with the thought, "Divine life heals me." Exhale declaring, "I release all anguish." Make your breathing a continuous remedy and you will see your body respond gratefully. There are moments of crisis when fear strikes suddenly, like a wave threatening to sweep you away. It may be a panic attack, a startle in the middle of the night, or an unexpected situation that leaves you frozen. For these moments, there is an emergency formula. Place one hand on your abdomen, the other on your chest. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose, ensuring that your belly expands before your chest. Hold the breath only for a moment. Then exhale through your mouth with a long sigh as if releasing a weight. Repeat 3 times, mentally saying, "I am safe. God is with me." This simple practice can stop a fear crisis in its early stages because it retrains the body and subconscious with a clear message of safety. I recall a woman who suffered panic attacks at bedtime. As soon as she turned off the light, her heart raced, her breathing became short, and a wave of fear overwhelmed her. She lived as a slave to this condition for years. I taught her a simple nighttime exercise. Before sleeping, lie down, place both hands on your abdomen, and breathe deeply, repeating with each exhalation, "I exhale fear, I receive confidence." At first, it was difficult because anxiety interrupted the rhythm, but she persisted. Within days, she fell asleep faster, and within weeks, the attacks disappeared. Her body had learned to associate nighttime breathing with safety, and her subconscious had been reprogrammed to sleep in peace. Think of a pilot who breathes deeply before taking control of an airplane. He knows that his decisions affect every passenger. That breath is not a trivial gesture. It is his way of taking command of himself before guiding the plane. You are also the pilot of your life. If, before an important meeting, a difficult conversation, or a critical decision, you breathe deeply, your subconscious receives the message that you are in control. And so, instead of being swept away by fear, you navigate your life with calm and firmness. Do not forget nighttime exercises. The mind, entering sleep, is like fertile soil that accepts without resistance every seed you plant. If you lie down, reviewing worries, those seeds will grow during the night, and you will awaken with anxiety. But if you lie down practicing conscious breathing, planting confidence, your subconscious will work in your favor while you sleep. Keep it simple. Inhale and say inwardly, "I receive security." Exhale and affirm, "I release doubt." Do this 10 times before sleeping. This practice, as simple as watering a garden at night, will transform your rest into a secret laboratory where confidence grows. Fear can appear at any moment, but you have a protocol to dissolve it at its root. Breathe at work. Breathe with your family. Breathe in illness. Breathe during crises. And breathe in the calm of night. Make your breathing a habit of faith, an invisible shield, a continuous prayer. The air that enters you is life itself. The air that leaves you is the dissipated shadow. Each inhalation is confidence sown. Each exhalation is fear thrown away. If you adopt these protocols in your daily life, you will find that fear no longer has power over you because you have learned the practical science of dissolving it with your own breath. Chapter 7. Breath as a magnet for prosperity. Breathing is the secret mirror of universal life. Just as air circulates through your lungs, wealth circulates in the world. When you breathe naturally, oxygen enters, nourishes your cells, and as you exhale, you release what no longer serves you. That same rhythm is the rhythm of prosperity, receiving and giving, inhaling abundance and letting go of blockage, opening yourself to the endless flow of life. Those who cut off their breath weaken. Those who block the circulation of goods and thoughts impoverish themselves. Therefore, learning to breathe consciously not only heals the body and calms the mind, it also attracts prosperity. Jesus said, "I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it abundantly." Abundance is not a luxury reserved for a few. It is the divine right of every human being. Abundant life is breathing fully, without restriction, without fear of taking too much or releasing too much. Observe nature. Rivers do not hoard water, they let it flow. Trees do not store oxygen, they release it. The sea does not keep the waves, it distributes them endlessly. Prosperity is a rhythm, the same rhythm as your breathing. Those who understand this and align themselves with this tempo become magnets for wealth. A merchant came to me ruined. He had lost his store, his accounts were in the red, and his mind saw no way out. He said, "I have worked day and night, but I feel fortune has abandoned me." I observed his breathing. It was short and shallow, as if he did not want to receive air, as if he feared even oxygen might betray him. I taught him a simple affirmation to practice each morning. On inhalation, silently say, "I breathe in wealth." On exhalation, say, "I release blockage." At first, he did this with disbelief, as his conscious mind argued, "I don't have a penny, how can I breathe wealth?" But he persisted, imprinting this idea in his subconscious day after day. Within a few weeks, a former client approached him with a new business opportunity. He received an unexpected loan and his business flourished once again. He confessed to me, "It wasn't the bank that saved me. It was my breath. I began to feel that wealth was part of me, and everything changed." This is not magic. It is law. The subconscious obeys repeated images, and breath is the perfect vehicle to deliver them. When you inhale with the thought of abundance, your deep mind receives the command to create the conditions for that abundance. When you exhale with the intention of releasing blockage, your subconscious expels old beliefs of scarcity. Thus, your breath becomes an invisible magnet that attracts wealth, because wealth is nothing more than circulating energy, like air that never stops moving. Many fail because they try to hold on to everything, as if fear of letting go could secure safety. But those who hold their breath suffocate, and those who hoard goods impoverish themselves. Prosperity requires circulation. When you breathe with confidence, you give and receive in a perfect cycle. That is why, whenever you fear loss, take a deep breath and remember, as I breathe, life sustains me. As I give, life returns to me. A man once told me he hoarded every coin, convinced he had to defend his small sum. He lived tense, breathing shallowly, always expecting a stroke of misfortune. I showed him that his breathing reflected his mind. If he lived holding his breath, he also held back prosperity. I asked him to practice the following cycle 10 times a day. Inhale with the phrase, "I receive abundance." Exhale with the phrase, "I release fear." Within a few months, his business prospered. More importantly, his attitude changed. He no longer counted crumbs but lived open to the flow. The universe breathes with you. The expansion of your lungs reflects the expansion of galaxies. Contraction reflects the returning tides. Prosperity is not an isolated event. It is the heartbeat of the cosmos in your daily life. Each time you breathe, the universe reminds you, just as I circulate within you, so does wealth circulate in your life. If you understand this mystery, you will never fear scarcity again. Try a simple experiment. Close your eyes. Inhale with the thought, "I am part of the universal rhythm of abundance." Hold for a moment. Feel your deep mind absorb that image. Exhale slowly, saying, "I release blockage, I release scarcity." Rest a moment in silence, as if floating in an ocean of infinite riches. Repeat this cycle 10 times upon waking and 10 times before sleeping. This is not a superstitious ritual. It is mental training that reprograms your subconscious to align with the rhythm of prosperity. Remember, your breath is a magnet. If you breathe in fear, you attract lack. If you breathe with confidence, you attract abundance. Each inhalation is a check signed by life. Each exhalation cancels your mental debts. Breathe in wealth, sow abundance in your subconscious, and your outer world will reflect that planting with harvests of prosperity. Air is never lacking. It is always at your disposal. In the same way, prosperity is never lacking. It is in the constant flow of life. If you believe in scarcity, you suffocate. If you believe in abundance, you breathe freely. Make your breath a pact with divine wealth. Repeat each morning, "I breathe in wealth. I release blockage." Soon you will see that what was once a sigh of hope becomes tangible reality. Breath is circulation, and circulation is prosperity. Live in this rhythm and you will discover that abundance is as natural as your own breathing. Chapter 8. Breath as Inner Medicine. Life has placed a secret pharmacy within you, a silent laboratory that works day and night. That laboratory is your breath. Each inhalation is a current of life that enters your blood, and each exhalation is a purification that cleanses your body of waste. Just as oxygen is essential for your cells, faith is essential for your mind. Where there is oxygen, life is renewed. Where there is faith, existence flourishes. Deep breathing is the bridge between these two realities, oxygenation and trust, physical medicine and spiritual medicine. Imagine a lamp that needs oil to burn. If the oil runs out, the flame falters. Your cells are lamps that depend on oxygen to burn brightly. When you breathe superficially, you deprive those lamps of fuel, resulting in fatigue, anxiety, and illness. But when you breathe deeply, you supply abundant oxygen, and each cell ignites its inner light. The body responds with vitality, the mind clears, and your mood lifts. In the same way, your faith is the oxygen of your subconscious. If you feed your mind with doubt, the lamp falters. If you nourish it with trust, it shines brightly. I have witnessed remarkable cases of healing through conscious breathing. A man came to me with anxiety attacks. His heart raced uncontrollably, his hands trembled, and his mind filled with dark thoughts. Doctors found no physical cause because the problem was not in the body, but in his breathing and his mind. I asked him that whenever a crisis approached, he sit and breathe deeply, repeating, "Each breath heals me, each exhale frees me." At first it was difficult, but soon his pulse calmed and his mind regained clarity. Within weeks the attacks disappeared. The medicine was within him, waiting to be activated by conscious breathing. Another case was a woman who had suffered from insomnia for years. She went to bed tired, yet when she closed her eyes, her mind churned with endless worries. She had tried medications without lasting results. I taught her a simple nightly exercise. Inhale deeply with the thought, "I receive peace." Exhale slowly with the phrase, "I release anxiety." She repeated this 10 times before sleep, and soon restful sleep enveloped her. Her nights became restorative. The secret was teaching her subconscious through breath that the body could release tension and surrender to calm. I have also seen physical pain relieved through deep breathing. A man with severe muscular pain told me, "It feels as if my body is trapped in armor." I asked him to breathe with attention, directing each inhalation toward the painful area, imagining the air as light penetrating his muscles. On exhalation, he visualized tension leaving with his breath. He repeated this exercise several times a day, and within a week, the pain had decreased significantly. His body had learned to use oxygen and the mind to regenerate itself. Medical science confirms that proper oxygenation supports cellular regeneration. Your cells renew constantly, but without sufficient oxygen, the process slows. Deep breathing provides the necessary fuel for your body to repair itself. Each inhalation is like sending fresh energy to the internal workshops of your body. If you pair that oxygen with faith in your healing, you multiply the effect. The subconscious obeys the image of health you provide. That is why, on inhalation, imagine divine life circulating through your blood. On exhalation, feel pain, tension, and illness leaving with the air. Make breath your daily medicine. You do not need bottles or complicated prescriptions because you carry the divine pharmacy within you. Practice this simple cycle. Inhale deeply, repeating, "Each breath heals me." Exhale slowly, affirming, "Each exhale frees me." Do it in the morning to fill your day with vitality, at night to rest in peace and anytime pain arises. It is a universal remedy, free of side effects, always available. Remember, your subconscious records every breath as a command. If you breathe with fear, you instruct your body to become ill. If you breathe with trust, you instruct your body to heal. You are your own doctor when you learn to direct your breath with faith. Oxygenation is the visible symbol of healing faith circulating in the invisible. Do not forget, breath is the inner medicine life has placed within you. Each inhalation is health entering. Each exhalation is fear leaving. Use this medicine with gratitude and persistence, and you will discover that your body, mind, and spirit are renewed like a field after the rain. Chapter 9. Breathing trust in human relationships. Fear not only harms the body and paralyzes the mind, it also corrodes relationships. Many marriages break not due to a lack of love, but because of excessive fear. The husband fears he is not enough. The The wife fears she is not valued. The children fear they are not understood. That fear turns into harsh words, prolonged silences, and cold gestures that poison daily life. Friendships wither when suspicion replaces trust. And across society, mutual fear builds walls of distrust that separate communities and families. Conscious breathing can transform this dynamic. Just as the air unites all humans, the same oxygen you breathe today once circulated through the lungs of generations past. It can also unite divided hearts. When you breathe with awareness, you enter a universal rhythm that harmonizes tension. A single person breathing calmly can shift the atmosphere of an entire household because the subconscious minds of others perceive the vibration of serenity. Imagine two spouses in the middle of an argument. Voices rise, hearts pound, and the chest tightens. If one of them breathes deeply and exhales slowly, the fight is already being diffused. They can silently say to themselves, "I inhale peace, I exhale resentment." That breath is contagious. The other, without realizing why, feels the tension lessen. In moments, what seemed like a battle can become dialogue. Resentment is stale air trapped in the chest. Every painful memory becomes a thorn that interrupts the natural flow of life. That is why exhaling is so important. You are not just expelling carbon dioxide. You can release the memory of the offense. On the exhale, imagine resentment leaving you as dark smoke. On the inhale, visualize clean air filled with forgiveness and trust entering. Practice this several times a day, and you will notice your heart lighten. Let me tell you a parable. Two brothers grew up together, but a poorly divided inheritance separated them. For years they did not speak, each breathing the poisoned air of resentment. A wise elder brought them together and asked them to sit facing each other. He taught them a simple practice. Inhale deeply with the phrase, "I receive God's forgiveness," and exhale saying, "I release my resentment." At first, they did it stiffly without looking at each other, but as they continued, something changed. Their shoulders relaxed, their eyes moistened, and finally one extended a hand. They embraced like children, and the resentment dissolved. Reconciliation did not come from long discussions, but from the breath of forgiveness. You can practice this technique in your own relationships. If you have conflict with someone, or harbor resentment toward a family member or friend, dedicate a few minutes each day to breathe with the intention of forgiveness. Inhale silently, "I accept divine peace." Exhale, "I release the offense." Do this even if the other person is not present. Your subconscious will record the act and begin to shift your attitude. Often, when you change inwardly, the other person responds unexpectedly. You can also practice breathing together as a couple or group. Sit facing each other, close your eyes, and coordinate your rhythm. Inhale together. Hold for a moment. Exhale in unison. Rest in silence. As you breathe, repeat internally, "We breathe trust, we sow harmony." This exercise creates an invisible field of goodwill that dissolves accumulated tensions. I have seen marriages regain tenderness through this practice. Families reconcile and entire groups experience a previously unknown peace. Society as a whole needs to learn to breathe trust. Communities breathe fear when they see neighbors as enemies, and that fear translates into wars and divisions. But when people realize the air entering their lungs is the same air entering their brother's lungs, they will understand that no true separation exists. Conscious breathing is recognizing that we all share the same source of life. Make your breath an instrument of forgiveness and reconciliation. Do not hold any more poisoned air of resentment. Exhale offenses, inhale trust. In doing so, you will not only heal your relationships, but contribute to healing the world. Because each conscious breath is a spark of peace that spreads beyond yourself. Remember this simple and powerful formula. Inhale trust, exhale resentment. Repeat it in your marriage, in your friendships, in your community. Make each breath an act of union. You will see the walls of fear fall and the bonds of trust strengthen. Breath is the bridge that unites hearts, and when you breathe with forgiveness, your entire life becomes a song of harmony. Chapter 10. Breathing and Inner Guidance. Within you there is a wise voice that never errs. It is the voice of the higher self, the whisper of the spirit that guides you toward the right path in every decision. But that voice does not shout or impose itself. It manifests in the silence, when the conscious mind calms and stops making noise. Breathing is the key that opens the door to that silence. Each deep inhale smooths the waves of superficial thought, and each prolonged exhale clears your inner horizon. Gradually, just as when the wind dies down and a lake becomes a mirror, your mind becomes receptive to intuition. And I have seen business people, faced with important decisions, become overwhelmed with calculations, fears, and doubts. They consulted statistics, asked for advice, yet forgot to consult their inner wellspring. When they learned to pause, close their eyes, and breathe consciously, they discovered that the answer was already within them. They inhaled with the thought, "I receive clarity," and exhaled with the phrase, "I release confusion." Soon an image, an idea, or a feeling of certainty would appear like a compass pointing unwaveringly north. Breathing is that spiritual compass. If you breathe with anxiety, the needle trembles, and you do not know which way to go. If you breathe calmly, the needle steadies and points the way. The law is that simple. The spirit speaks constantly, but you can only hear it when your breath is calm, when your body is not trapped in haste, and your mind is not chasing 1,000 thoughts. The great creators understood this. Inventors, artists, and musicians, before giving birth to their works, would withdraw for a moment to breathe in silence. It is said that certain painters would stand before the canvas without moving their brush until their breathing found a deep rhythm. Then the idea would descend like a ray of light. A musician shared that before composing, he would lie down with his eyes closed and breathe slowly until the melody revealed itself. They could not explain it in words, but they obeyed the universal law. Breathing quiets the conscious mind and opens the channel of intuition. You can practice this secret too. When you have a question, sit in silence, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Inhale deeply thinking, "I receive the answer." Exhale softly saying, "I release doubt. I do not force it. I do not try to manufacture the solution. I simply breathe calmly and let the silence speak." Often the answer comes as a sudden idea, other times as a quiet certainty, or as an external coincidence confirming what you already intuited. The subconscious, in contact with infinite wisdom, reveals what you need at the right moment. A young student once told me she had to choose between two fields of study. She had made lists of pros and cons, asked friends, yet remained confused. I suggested this exercise. Inhale with the question, "Which is the right path for me?" Exhale calmly, without forcing. She repeated this cycle each night before sleep. A few days later, she awoke with luminous clarity. She knew exactly which path to choose, and that choice led her to a prosperous and happy career. The answer had always been inside her, waiting for her to silence the noise to hear it. The spirit always responds, but you need the silence that deep breathing creates. Inhale, and you open the door. Exhale, and you clear the space. In the pause, the inner voice manifests. The method is that simple. You do not need complicated rituals or intermediaries because the spiritual compass is within you, and your breath is the finger that activates it. Practice this exercise daily. Formulate your questions silently on the inhale. Hold that breath with confidence. Exhale, releasing anxiety, and rest in calm, waiting. Do it with perseverance, and you will find you are never lost again. Conscious breathing becomes your inner guide, the compass that always points to the truth of your being. Remember, each inhale can be the question, each exhale the surrender, and each pause the revelation. If you make your breath a dialogue with the spirit, you will live guided, inspired, and at peace. Chapter 11, Fear of Death, Trust in Eternal Life. The deepest fear of human beings is the fear of death. Many hide it beneath other anxieties, but at the core beats the question, what will happen when I take my last breath? The answer is not found in complicated theories, but in the very act of breathing. Just as each night you close your eyes and enter sleep, each day you exhale air and inhale again, trusting that the next breath will come. That same rhythm is a rehearsal for eternity. The last breath is not an end, it is a return to the spirit, a journey back to the ocean from which you originated. St. Paul expressed it in immortal words, "Death is swallowed in victory." What does this mean? It means that what we call death is not defeat but triumph. It is not extinguishing but igniting at a higher vibration. Every exhale you take throughout your life is a small practice of this great truth. You exhale the old, the worn, the unnecessary, and in doing so you make space for a new inhale, for a new life. I have accompanied terminally ill patients who found peace precisely in this mystery. A man, knowing his days were limited, told me, "I fear closing my eyes and never seeing again." I taught him to breathe with faith. With each inhale, he silently repeated, "I breathe eternal life," and with each exhale, "I release my fear of death." He practiced this on his bed day after day until a profound calm enveloped him. His family told me that at his final breath, he smiled as one who releases a weight and lets himself be carried by a serene river. His last exhale was not anguish, it was victory. A woman in a similar situation confessed that death seemed like a dark abyss. I spoke to her about sleep. Each night I told her, "You enter a state where you do not know who you are or where you are, and yet you awaken renewed. So will death be, a surrender in trust to the Spirit, with the certainty that you will awaken in another form of life." I asked her to practice conscious breathing as a rehearsal. Inhale with the phrase, "I receive divine light," and exhale with the phrase, "I surrender to God." She practiced this for weeks, and on the day of her passing, her face reflected peace, like one resting confidently in the arms of a loving Father. Breathing teaches us that nothing truly dies, everything transforms. The air you exhale does not vanish. It enters trees, seas, and other lungs. Your last breath does not vanish either. It returns to the Spirit, which receives it and transforms it into new life. Death is simply the ultimate exhalation of all fear, and eternal life is the inhalation in the divine dimension. You can rehearse this truth daily. When you feel fear of death, practice conscious breathing. Inhale with the thought, "Eternal life dwells in me," and exhale saying, "I release the fear of dying." Do this with serenity, as one preparing for a safe journey. Soon you will discover that fear loses its power because your subconscious begins to accept immortality as reality. And what your subconscious accepts, your life manifests in peace. The last breath is not a fall into the void, it is an ascent into fullness. Those who understand this live without fear because they know that death does not exist as an end, only as a transition. Each daily breath is a rehearsal, a practice of trust. Each time you exhale, you release part of your past. Each time you inhale, you receive new life. And so, when the final moment comes, you will recognize it as a familiar gesture, the culmination of a learned habit. Exhale with faith, inhale in the Spirit. Do not fear death, it is only a shadow that flees before the light of faith. Breathe with confidence. Practice surrender in every exhale and renewal in every inhale. And when your last breath arrives, it will be absorbed in victory because you will have already learned that life never ends. It only changes form. Chapter 12, A New Way of Living, the Rhythm of Trust. Life has given you a perfect instrument to heal, prosper, forgive, and transcend, your breath. Throughout these pages, you have discovered that it is not a simple biological movement, but the sacred key that opens the doors of your subconscious and connects it to infinite power. Each chapter has been a seed planted in your mind. The revelation of divine breath, the dissolution of fear as shadow, the cultivation of trust as a habit, the science of exhaling what oppresses, prayer expressed through breath, practical protocols for daily life, breath as a magnet for prosperity, breathing as inner medicine, reconciliation through shared air, the inner guidance revealed in the silence of the breath, and the certainty that the last exhale is victory. Now it is time to integrate everything into a single rhythm, into a new way of living. The old man breathed unconsciously, suffocated by fear, enslaved by anxiety, dragged by the shadows of doubt. The new man breathes with faith, walks with confidence, recognizes divine life in every relationship, and experiences liberation from all limitations with each exhale. This transformation does not happen in a single day. It is forged through constant repetition, persistent practice, and daily habits that shape your subconscious. Just as a river, flowing endlessly, polishes the hardest rock, your conscious breathing, practiced faithfully, refines your character and opens channels of peace and abundance in your life. Establishing a habit is like inscribing a law within yourself. When you dedicate a few minutes each morning to conscious breathing, you give the first command of the day to your subconscious. Today, I live in trust. Today, I walk in peace. Today, I prosper in abundance. This command becomes a compass that guides all your actions. At night, before sleep, practicing trust-filled breathing plants, seeds of security in the fertile soil of your mind, ready to sprout during the night and manifest at dawn. Between the beginning and end of each day, every breath can serve as a silent reminder. Inhale to receive strength. Exhale to release fear. And let us recall the formulas you already know. I breathe security, I sow success. I exhale fear, I exhale doubt. I exhale shadow. Each breath heals me, each exhale frees me. I inhale trust, I exhale resentment. I breathe abundance, I release blockages. I receive the life of God, I release my fear. All of these are variations on the same principle. Your breath is a covenant with the divine. Every time you breathe, you renew that covenant. You do not need distant temples or complicated ceremonies. You carry within you the invisible altar of your lungs, where the liturgy of life is celebrated at every moment. Imagine a world where every man and woman breathed with trust. Homes would become oases of peace. Nations would reconcile. Illness would yield to inner strength. Prosperity would flow like an unstoppable river. You can begin creating that new world today, because each conscious breath you take not only transforms you, but radiates vibrations of trust to those around you. Make every breath a pact with the divine. Walk with gratitude, work with serenity, speak with compassion, and rest with peace. Soon you will discover that your breathing becomes a continuous prayer, a silent hymn that accompanies all your actions. Then there will be no separation between your daily life and your spiritual life. Both will become one, a constant flow of trust that sustains you. I bless you now with these words. Breathe with confidence, live in peace, prosper in abundance. This is your divine inheritance. This is the new way of living. Breathe in this way, and your entire being, your home and your world will be transformed.